Hi, peace be upon you folks. In this video, I would like to talk about what I see as some of the connections that that point out to possible rituals that are actually going on, because I actually believe that the people who control most of what happens around the world are controlled by certain entities. Anyway, this is not a post on whether you support Black Lives Matter or not. And some people talk about how all lives matter, and which is not the point, because you say Black Lives Matter typically because all lives matter, but in fact, Black lives are not being granted as if they matter, right? So this is not a post on that debate, okay? This is just on certain rituals that I see that might be happening, that, some connections. So maybe it's worthy of you to pay attention also and see that, okay, maybe there are connections, right? And then to actually be aware that maybe what you see is not just maybe something on the surface, but something else is a ritual being played behind what you see on the surface. So here are some possible rituals that I see that are being played out. Let's take a look at this video clip first. So this is a video clip from the movie 300, Rise of an Empire. And as you could see, these are military men and they're about to hit another ship. So they're holding on tightly to the rope of their ship, right? They're bracing for impact. So a few months ago, based on what was happening around me and some things I was seeing, I wrote this on Twitter. So I said I was going to not address this because it didn't seem of consequence. But then I saw the WWE WrestleMania ad, and I consider WWE as an arena for their rituals and predictive subconscious programming. So after Brexit, right, when Meghan Markle and Harry left, the royal family left Britain, I heard the Lord song, the popular one called Royals. It's a catchy song, but I see it as if it plays in this ritual. So after Brexit and the Queen telling the Meghan and Harry to drop their royal titles, I looked up royals in gematria and in Strong's Concordance, and it took it fell in line. I mean, forgive some of the mistakes that happen on my Twitter page and in my some of my posts. Sometimes I write it and then later I go back and I see that I've made a mistake. So just try to see what should be there instead of murdered. They shouldn't be murdered. So anyway, I looked up royals in gematria and Strong's Concordance, and basically there were certain things that fell in line with the song. And as you can see from the date of this post, it was on the 6th of March. I put this post on Twitter. But basically the song had some of its lyrics say, "Two wanted outlaws. The kind of life isn't for us. You can call me Queen Bee, baby I'll rule," right? So it was something I would have just watched but not wrote about, or just listened to and not wrote about. Then after all these candidates dropped from running, right, the Democratic candidates, they dropped and they decided to support Joe Biden. The news outlet Russia Today called it the quiet hand of Obama. But anyway, basically, so the two wanted outlaws, like Meghan and Harry, the kind of life ain't for us, being royals, you can call me Queen Bee. Anyway, so after that, I was still not going to write it, right? Even after the WrestleMania ad and then listening to the royal songs and Brexit, But then on this outlet, Russia Today, right, when all these candidates were, going behind Joe Biden, dropping their bid for candidates of the Democratic nominee, Russia Today called it the quiet hand of Obama. So I looked that up. Sometimes there's a lot you could look up if you're just looking at the news, but sometimes, your gut feeling or some sixth sense, I believe sometimes we're all connected to the metaphysical, the spiritual realm. And, the Lord guides us through his angels, even though we are not aware of it. Anyway, that is not a matter of this post. That's just something else, right? But basically, I decided to look up quiet hand of Obama because, Obama is relevant, for some of the people who look at prophecy and all that. So I looked that up, but was still not going to write about it, even though it was similar to Royals, right? Then I saw the WrestleMania ad. So I guess I saw the WrestleMania ad after all of it, right? After the Magick, the Royals song, and the quiet hand of Obama, right? And in the ad of the WrestleMania, it featured a sheep, right? In the WrestleMania 36 ad. So I think there is they're pointing out to similar things, right? I would look at like I said, the Strong's Concordance of Royals, and I would also look at the Strong's Concordance of Quiet Hand of Obama, and you could see a little bit of a relationship, right? A little bit of a similarity. Before we do that, though, let's just take a look at this WrestleMania ad, what it looked like, at least some part of it. So as you could see from the ad, it featured a sheep as well. Anyway, so Royals in Jewish gematria is 641. In English gematria is 540. And 641 in the Greek's Strong's Concordance. I find that sometimes the Greek applies a lot, or maybe it makes me see what I want to see, at least. So in 641 in the Greek Strong's Concordance means it's to throw away, right? To throw overboard. So it's like to throw away, to cast down, to cast oneself down, to cast themselves overboard. So it could apply for the devil being cast down if you're thrown away, thrown overboard, as in Jonah also as well. That brings to mind that. But also if you yourself throw yourself overboard also, right? So basically the Strongs for Royals had to do with jumping ship, to jump ship in order to save oneself, basically. That's how I would see it. And it would seem Harry and Meghan are jumping ship. The Strongs for Quiet Hand of Obama had verses that relates to casting off one's garments, right? Throwing away one's garments, losing one's confidence. So it's like to throw off one's clothing, right? So you could see that some of these candidates were throwing off their clothing, throwing off their confidence, casting their bid for someone else instead. So it's almost like I see it this way, like you can either jump ship now, right? Or you reach a time when you cannot jump ship anymore. You have to be where you are when the judgment comes. You would be judged based on the ship you are in, right? But we'll address that as we go forward. But basically, if you just look at it, throwing off, casting off, right? There are similarities. You're either casting off a ship, casting off your garments, and something like that. And in the case of Meghan and Harry, I addressed some other things before, talking about the Revelation 12 sign and some rituals that I see playing out, right? And even if you want to look at the dragon, right? And if you want to think of Prince Andrew as the dragon, the tail of the dragon that casts the stars from the heavens, and the stars are considered celebrities, and casting them from and you see that even in I think it's the Hollywood Walk, where they have the stars, right, on the ground. So it's like he would bring down the celebrities, maybe because of pedophilia and that kind of scandal. Anyway, we'll address that. On the Minneapolis Capitol building, there are 4 horses, as in the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So if you look at George Floyd also, in that incident in Minneapolis, there were 4 policemen in that incident. So are we taking a knee? What are we taking a knee for? Or are you in a ship bracing for impact? But obviously on the surface, it just looks like you're protesting for rights and all that. And yeah, So there are levels that these things are happening at, and sometimes I believe the rituals that they mean, you're not aware of it.
Man! Brace yourselves!
You can see, so it's like you can see so many connections or resonances before you know, and you start thinking this, it can't just be a coincidence, right? Like you can see one or two and maybe think it's a coincidence, but after a while you gotta think maybe there's something to it. So for me it's like you gotta be careful what is stirring you up, what the passions they're flaring up within you, by what is going on, because you don't know whose hand you're playing in, right? So you may be part of a ritual you don't even understand. And remember this verse, especially in this climate or in today's universe, in today's world. Be still and know that I am the Lord. So for me, I think this is the best thing we can live with right now, because there are so many deceptions happening, so many, they're dividing us into so many parts, putting us into so many groups that we believe are good groups on the surface, but we're playing into somebody's hand. So the best thing you can do is to be still right now, right? Be with a group of people, do your level best. If you're attacked, obviously defend yourself, but be careful which hand you're playing in, what is stirring you up. That said, something else that has been resonating with me recently is a well, as in like a well for water, like a well that you can draw water from. And when I think of a well, there are two things that come to my mind. One is water, which is life, and knowledge. In some spiritual interpretations or dream interpretations, water is considered knowledge, right? And maybe knowledge is life, but also provision for communities, right? And if we're going into a time of chaos, many of our communities would need provision, right? Especially since some of us are so dependent on supermarkets and things like that. So water brings those things to mind. And two, the second thing that comes to mind is the prophet Joseph, upon him be peace, whose brothers threw him down a well, and the traders who sold him for a few coins, a few silver coins, the Quran says, and the Quran says that they were concerning him of those who were satisfied with little, right? He was just a boy, so they just wanted a few coins for him, whatever they could get. That's all they thought it was worth. But had they known the potential in Joseph, would they have been satisfied to sell him, for a few coins? Maybe they would have rather invested in him, right? It's like you look at some of these soccer players or these celebrities, and you look at some of the humble backgrounds they came from. How many people do you think would have liked to have had that information from the unseen to see what they would have become, right? But this is not what we should think about. So anyway, similarly, many of us, right, we make decisions solely on worldly things. We come near to people we may benefit from. Oh, that man is rich, so I'm going to be near him just in case. But maybe the ones who are most beneficial in the sight of your Lord are the ones you've neglected. So be good within yourself and be sincere, right? Try your best and be near to people because they're good and because of righteousness you seek from them, and try to invest in everybody, right, based on their potential, and try to be good no matter what. Don't just be good to rich people. You don't know where your benefits may come from. And even if people don't benefit you, your benefits is from the Lord anyway, and you seek from him the eternal reward. So seek righteousness as much as you are able, and be good and just to all people, and invest in good and invest in people by their potential. It's like they tell us about the companions of the prophet. They were good at discerning, observing people, and seeing what their potential was. Even by their nicknames, right? You found the close companions of the prophet. They each had their own thing, their own light, and we all have our own light within us. It's like the talents, the parable of the talents. I have some of this also in my posting on Facebook. But basically, we all have that light within us that sometimes we bury because we say, oh, we are not good enough. Let somebody else take that responsibility. But maybe if you let your light shine, right, then you've given out what is within you that people can benefit from. And if everybody lets their light shine, then we can all benefit from all that light. But if you bury your light, then eventually it becomes a burden upon you, right? So we must look for people, right? Some kids, you see them in the community, they want to learn about geography. Some, they want to learn about the religion. Look at what the Lord has given each person, their talents, and invest in those talents. And even within our communities, let it not just be schooling. Schooling is important. Everybody should have a basic education. But we are all different. We should all celebrate our differences, our huge potentials. Anyway, and also concerning Joseph, right? They were satisfied with a few coins. Similarly, most of us are satisfied with very little concerning our Lord. We seek a few coins, metaphorically, of course, when we could have so much more with the Lord. What do I mean? You're asking for things like, oh, give me, make me succeed in being a president, make me succeed in joining this organization, make me succeed in my exams. These are all good things. Why are you not asking for being one with the Lord, to be within his glory, within his wisdom, within his knowledge, to have the keys, right, to be one with him? And even when talking about the light, right, it's like sometimes the law is a burden, but once you become the light, right, once you become one with the Lord, then it's no longer a burden. You've been saved, you've been redeemed, you won with the Lord. Anyway, that's a topic for another post, maybe my next post, in fact. But the point I'm making here is some things based on the way our subconscious has been programmed. Some things seem logical in the material world, but illogical in the spiritual world. And some things that might seem a burden, but in fact they become your salvation, right? But the main point is, don't be satisfied with the little concerning your Lord. You can ask for more. Why don't you ask for him to love you, for you to love him with all your heart? Look at what you're deficient in and ask him to increase in that for you. Like, make me love you with all my heart, all my soul. They say that's the highest commandment. Why are you not asking for that? You want just to know about science when you could have knowledge of all things, right? Think about that. So anyway, whilst I was thinking about a well and, resonating with it, somebody sent me this from Forbes that talks about Honeywell. It says they built the world's most powerful quantum computer. So, I mean, and you could think of computers and the knowledge as a well, right? A well of knowledge. For them, it's a well for a different purpose. But it's like the name makes sense. And sometimes things just resonate. It's almost like when the Lord sends his judgment, it resonates in the heavens and it resonates on earth as well, even if the disbelievers are using it for their purpose, or even if they don't think they're playing into God's plans, right? So anyway, some other post I put up on Twitter because I'm trying to see the events that are happening and looking into the future, like seeing what they're programming us for. So if you look at George Floyd, you look at Minneapolis, Twin Cities, right? In the Capitol building of Minneapolis, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You think about the 4 policemen. And if you're talking about the Twin Cities, you have to think about Gemini as well. And in Gemini, you have to think about Balder and Hodor in Ragnarok, the twins who started Ragnarok by the death of Balder, and I think Trump is Balder, or it could be either South Korea or North Korea. Anyway, it's not, I don't have an exact science on this, right? But I think of Gemini, I think of Ragnarok, I think of twin realities, right? So if we're talking about time reversal, we're talking about jumping space-time, right? We're talking about bending time and space. Then maybe we're talking about a twin reality. And if you're talking about Black Lives Matter, taking a knee, it's like maybe they're telling you need to brace for impact. Something is about to happen. And then you talk about Atlanta and Rayshard Brooks, and you look at the emblem of Atlanta, the fire and the phoenix rising from it, right? So it's almost like they're seeing this fire coming, the judgment, the impact, and maybe alien invasion as well. And they're already doing the ritual, thinking maybe they can affect the metaphysical, so that they can affect reality, right? So that the magic dictates what happens in reality, so that they can emerge from this fire, from these ashes. And in fact, Atlanta was the city that they gave this emblem, this coat of arms, because of this reason, that basically it rose from the ashes, right? So these are some of the rituals I see playing. And maybe they're talking about the impact also of comets, or maybe they're not even comets, maybe they're satellites, right? Maybe for their purpose. So it's like you see these things, and it's like maybe yes, you're seeing from the Lord, but it's also you're seeing maybe their plans, right? And I mean, I can get into something of that, and looking at CERN and how that might affect the bending of space-time, or jumping dimension, or tearing the veil. But so yeah, like I see some of these connections. I don't think it's supernatural knowledge. I think sometimes we search and the Lord gives us, but I think sometimes some of us it's like we believe so much that we're getting some supernatural, hearing some supernatural, and we're so satisfied with some little insight we've got that we've deluded ourselves. But I don't believe we're actually hearing from God, or we've been given so much, right? I believe maybe the Lord is showing us a little bit, see what we do with it. In fact, what I think happens sometimes is this: you search for the Lord, you search for something, and maybe an angel is like, oh, he pleads for you to the Lord. And then Satan comes along and is like, this guy is not actually searching for that, but if you want me to prove it, I'll prove it. I'll give him a little bit and you would see. So I believe Satan is making an argument that, in fact, we're not seeking all, the whole, the Lord. We're just seeking a little bit so that we can boast about it. We can delude ourselves into thinking we're special, right? We all want to think we're special. And why would you not want to think that? But I think sometimes we fall into delusion. We fall into this idea that we're something we're not. And, that can be hard to accept sometimes. So that's my idea sometimes on some of these guys and girls that say they're prophets and things like that, or they hear from the Lord. I don't believe they hear from the Lord. I believe they might be hearing something. And I believe some of us are more in tune with resonating with what the Lord's commands are, what the resonance is on the Lord, and also in tune with what the agenda of these people, right? Because if they've connected us to the pit somehow, it's like when they say a portal opens, right? Something might come in or something might leave, and you might not be aware of it. So sometimes if they're tapping into our subconscious minds and using our minds, I'm getting into some other topics I've talked about it before, and this might sound strange if you've not heard some of my other topics. But basically, we may be able, just like they're tapping into our minds to use it in a way that we're not aware, we may be able to pick glimpses of some of the things they're picking at, right? So it doesn't mean, or sometimes, in fact, I think they target us. They're like, oh, okay, this person really believes he's that. Let us further that belief. Because you have to believe that Satan wants to be like the Most High. The Most High had prophets, he had this and that, he inspired people. Satan wants to do the same thing without actually coming out and, so that it looks natural. So just because you see connections doesn't mean, yes, the Lord might be guiding you to something, And many of times we see connections, but sometimes they don't happen to be anything. But don't just assume because of those connections you have some sort of supernatural knowledge, or because you're seeing some things. Like, I believe there are a lot of people that are seeing things, right? They're interpreting things, but from different angles. Some people are using codes, some people are using other things, right? And some people are just in tune, psychically, metaphysically, right? But I think we delude ourselves sometimes, right? And then we fall into error, thinking we're all that, and then we stop seeking. That's why I like the Taoist idea of like, behave as if you with lack of knowledge. So it's like humbling yourself in knowledge and always thinking that there is more. Don't be too satisfied with what you have and rejoice in it as if there's nothing else to be achieved, as if you've achieved everything. I believe supernatural knowledge has to do with understanding the metaphysical reality, how the interpretations in the heavens are converted, how they are interpreted between each heavens, right? How the scripture is manifested in each heaven. So it's not. I don't think it's just about looking at Strong's Concordance or looking up something anybody could look at. And some of us, we could see certain things because of maybe we worked in a line of arts or something like that. So we have to be careful when we think we're getting supernatural knowledge, because come on, man. Like, anyway, this is not a topic on that. I might talk a little bit on that in the next post. This is just me looking at some of what is happening, playing around us, and seeing some of these things I believe are rituals, that they are preparing us for something else in the future. So with that, maybe it's not an insight into everything, but maybe it will give you an idea that maybe things are not just what they seem like on the surface, and you ought to be cautious. And it's the best time to seek your Lord right now, because deception is going to come in a way you would not imagine, and it would be marvelous, right? So I hope there was something beneficial from this anyway. Peace be with you guys.